Hey everybody, David here, and today I'm going to talk a little bit of Arrowverse stuff. I'm doing my rankings of the crossover events. That's right, last week, a week ago exactly, we got to witness the biggest crossover. Maybe not of all time, but another big crossover that we usually are accustomed to if you have been watching Arrow or The Flash, maybe even Supergirl and Legends for the last couple of years. So I have a list here of just the crossover events. I'm not including all the crossovers, or maybe this list would look a little bit different. Uh, just the events, starting from Flash versus Arrow and onwards. The event crossovers that usually air around late November, early December. So those are the only ones that are going to be included. There are six of them. That's right. We've been doing this for 6 years. So let's get right into this. At number six, I have The Brave and the Bold. This is the second crossover that aired in the same week of when Flash and Arrow first crossed over. I consider the first two of these crossovers to be separate crossover episodes. You can watch them both separately and still get what's going on. I don't feel like you need to watch them back to back. Even though they did air back to back, it was a two-night event. But as far as I'm concerned, the two episodes can be seen separately. And Brave and the Bold, as much as I really enjoy this episode, I do feel it was a little lackluster compared to the other one that came before this. It was still a great episode, and I think there were some great moments, especially between Oliver and Barry. And what both episodes did really well was highlight how different Oliver is to Barry, and I think that was also to introduce people who watched The Flash who might not have been aware of Arrow, and people who have watched Arrow was the same thing when watching the Flash part of the episode. So for the most part though, I am putting this here because I do feel the wrap up with the boomerang was a little underwhelming. That's what I'm gonna say. So with that being said, that's why this is here. Next on my list, on number five, I have Flash versus Arrow. That's right, the first part of these two crossovers. Flash versus Arrow was a lot of fun, and having to see Barry and Oliver go at it. And I think this was before Batman v Superman came out. Funny enough, I think this show did a better job at pitting the two heroes against each other than Batman v Superman did. Even though I really love Batman v Superman as well, this one made it work more. Now, to be fair, it's a TV show. With TV shows, you can have these characters grow, and so where they are at in this episode and in their seasons worked really nicely. Barry's new at this, so he's kind of learning from Oliver, and when he's whammied, as he would say, by the Rainbow Rider, he gets more and more angry because he feels like everything is crashing in on him, and maybe a little bit of jealousy there too. But the fight versus Flash and Arrow actually worked really well for me. I remember watching that scene in particular over and over again because I was like, wow, this is actually cool. They're making Arrow and Flash, like, this is the first crossover TV show that we're seeing, and this is their first team up, and I really enjoyed it. Now, as the years went by, I kind of had lowered this episode on my list. I think the episode is getting a little bit dated, but not in a bad way. I still think it's a worthy, fun episode to go back to once in a while. And Oliver's suit, I think, was the best during those seasons of Arrows as well. So, with that being said, let's move on to number four. The Invasion crossover I have at number four. Invasion was a huge episode, three-part episode when it first started. Not only were they bringing in the Legends of Tomorrow, but they were also bringing in Supergirl as a last-minute addition. My problem with these three episodes is that they really do feel like a Flash episode an Arrow episode, and a Legends episode. And the middle portion really is what brings it down a little bit, because I feel like if you're going to watch all three parts in a row, the middle part is an Arrow love letter. And I understand that because it was Arrow's 100th episode. So they were balancing celebrating 100 episodes of Arrow while doing a crossover at the same time. And I think they realized that this year to maybe have the Flash 100th episode be separate from the crossover event, because it didn't get those writers a little tangled in the crossover. With Arrow, it made sense because I think all these shows wouldn't have happened without Arrows. So to have the crossover be part of Arrow's 100th episode was actually a nice little touch. But if I'm gonna judge these as like the crossovers as one whole, I do kind of wish that it would have focused more on the crossover rather than just simply Arrow. But I think they did a nice job at balancing both. But that's why I have it a little bit lower on this list compared to the next three that I'm going to be talking about. Which number 3 is, that's right, Elseworlds. Elseworlds was a great crossover and a much better improvement compared to Invasion. But it's not at number 2 for myself, because I do feel that it was still a Flash episode, an Arrow episode, and a Supergirl episode. You can feel that there were 3 separate episodes. The only difference is that the story did feel a little bit more consistent. But you can feel like this is where the cuts are for the next episode, where the next 2 episodes I'm going to talk about feel more like a mini movie. I didn't feel that with this one, and that's what I was hoping Elseworlds would be. It's very noticeable when Superman leaves at the end of part 1 and then returns in part 3, but it's only Gotham in part 2. I kind of wish Superman was utilized a little bit better, and Batwoman as well. I wish she was utilized a little bit more. But from what we got, it was a really good, fun crossover to have, and with a lot of great Easter eggs in there in all 3 parts. So it's still a great crossover, just I was hoping for it to feel a little bit neater, maybe. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So at number 2, I have, this is a 2-parter, Legends of Today and Legends of Yesterday. This episode was setting up the Legends of Tomorrow TV series, and I feel this crossover was the first, after the first crossover event from the previous year with Brave and the Bold and Flash versus Arrow. I feel this crossover, bringing in Vandal Savage and having these heroes having to team up and going right into the next episode, it didn't really feel like a 2-part episode. I feel like they could have edited this as a one TV movie kind of deal, I guess, because it does feel a lot more consistent than the previous 2 team ups on my list. I did feel like this does feel like one gigantic story. I do think the Flash part of the episode still has that problem, because they did have the Wally West storyline, I think, going on in part 1. I might, or was it Jay Garrick? It was one or the other, but yeah, I think it was the Jay Garrick storyline they had going on in part 1. But if I were, other than that though, I think this episode was really good and gave us some really big moments. I mean, Oliver finding out that he has a son was something huge. I think the fight with Vandal Savage in both parts was really cool. I think the Hawk Man and Hawk Girl moments, seeing them, was really cool. I know they were the least favorite parts for people about Legends of Tomorrow, but I actually thought they were alright, and their introduction here was really solid, I felt. I liked that the characters all went to a farm. I liked that Barry had to travel back in time because it looked like it was Doomsday happening. There were a lot of great moments, and I think this episode, this crossover, really topped itself with what it could do. Moving on, to my number one, which I guess all of you have guessed already, is that's right, Crisis on Earth X. This was last year's crossover. I actually do think that this is the best crossover they have done so far. Not only did they do 3 parts, they did this in 4 parts. That's right. This is when they included Supergirl heavily into the crossover. All the heroes battling Nazis together. This was the biggest, craziest thing that I could imagine. And bigger isn't always better. That's not the reason why Elseworlds didn't work as well for me as Crisis on Earth X did. It was really interesting seeing how they balanced all those characters in 4 episodes. Obviously, some of the legends got a little sidetracked because there were so many characters, and you can feel that in the episodes. But I do think it's important for Barry, Karen, and Oliver to always be there, since they're the 3 main characters of their own shows. Having the legends alternate actually works out okay, because it's like, yeah, we get it. There's too many of those guys, so let those guys shift once in a while here and there. It's going to be interesting to see Crisis on Infinite Earths next year, because I think there's going to be even more heroes to balance. So think about that. These 4 shows already, you can do something like this. It will be interesting to see what they do next year, because we know that's going to be insane, especially if they're already announcing what the crossover is going to be. So with that being said, Crisis on Earth X is my favorite crossover of all time, so far, I should say, in this this lineup of great crossovers. Now I want you guys to rank it. If you guys watch the Arrowverse like myself and you guys enjoy these crossovers, yeah, comment below and tell me what are the rankings of how would you rank these 6 episodes. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. And look, if we don't agree, that's cool. We all have different opinions, and that's the great thing about all this. So please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel, especially if you are a huge fan of the Arrowverse, like I am, or any superhero TV shows or movies. And with that being said, until next time, take care.